right, let's bring it in. Hello, everybody. We are back live on Twitch and YouTube talking about day 3 of the Detroit Lions NFL Draft. We're currently at the beginning of the 6th round here. We didn't really expect to be live today, but the way the Lions kind of traded up and now have also the 5th last pick in the NFL Draft, there's a giant chasm here where we were able to finally catch up with all of our writing and still have about 2 hours probably until the Lions make their next pick. So let's spend it with our live audience. How about that, huh? You guys get a special treat. And your last chance to view this before it's gone. So enjoy the next however long we go, maybe 45 minutes or so, to kind of see what you guys think of the draft, see what our panel thinks of the draft. We might have some other people drop by here and there. But let's talk about it. The Lions have made 2 selections today, back-to-back selections at the top of the 4th round. First, they go Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver out of USC, followed up with Derrick. I almost said it again. I almost said Derrick Brown again. Derrick Barnes, the linebacker out of Purdue, nailing 2 needs that I think Lions fans were just desperately hoping they would address earlier in the draft. But you get them at the top of the 4th round. You've got guys who have starter potential, I think. And maybe even right away for one of them, in my opinion. But before I get into my thoughts, who wants to talk about them first? I'll let whoever's eager enough to talk about either of these guys jump on in there.
Rock, paper, scissors for it.
Is the latency going to be good enough here? All right, let's try it.
I don't know. I mean, we could just do it off screen and then pull it in. Okay, I've chosen. Okay. You counted down, Jeremy, and then we'll just move it on camera.
All right. We're doing it on shoot. So 3, 2, 1, shoot. I need to see it on shoot. All right, ready?
Is that an American thing? I've never done shoot.
I don't know.
What is it in Canada?
I don't know. Rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, okay.
3, 2, 1, shoot. Oh,
okay.
All right. Think about it for a second here. This is
more entertaining than day 3.
Yeah, this is great coverage right here. 3, 2, 1, shoot. Oh, Mike wins. Does that mean you get to go first, or are you going to defer?
It means I get a
Do you want to take the wind?
I will defer.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I just got to finish up real quick.
That's fine.
Okay, so this is actually a really good pick. Amon-Ra St. Brown, his brother Equinemius St. Brown plays for the Packers. Great names. This was kind of my fear about going into essentially day 2 and day 3 of the draft, is the Lions would essentially punt on what is a very good receiver class, where it happened last year where there were a lot of good options day 1, day 2, and they only really ended up with Quintez Cephas, who had a few moments as a rookie, but hasn't really shown that much. He's a dude who might not even be a safe bet to make the roster next year. So not only is St. Brown a welcome addition to a very depleted wide receiver group, he's a guy who could realistically see some significant action sooner rather than later. Right now, the starters, I think, are going to be Tyrell Williams and Brashad Perriman.
Right.
But there's a bit of an opening in the slot, and he has a bit of experience there, but also play on the outside. It's going to be really interesting to see what direction the Lions go with, because right now I think he's not a guy that you have to rush into the offense, but at the same time, there's a lot of weaknesses there where if you plug him in, I don't see anything wrong with giving him some live snaps.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions aren't going to be well served starting Khalif Raymond in the slot. So I think you're right. There's a huge opportunity for him to make contributions in year 1, unlike last year's situation. The thing that it's kind of intriguing really with both picks is that they've played 2 very different roles at college depending on the year, because like you mentioned, St. Brown played mostly in the slot. I think was it this last year or was it 2 years ago? And then the other years he was purely outside. I do think he probably projects to being a slot receiver here. Although the thing that's kind of interesting is about how the Lions are building their wide receiver core is that, you normally, when you're talking about it like a prototypical offense, you're talking about your big contested catches guys on the outside and your small speedy guys on the inside. Well, the Lions are kind of putting that on its head right now with some speedy receivers on the outside that can separate, and their contested catch guy potentially being that big slot role instead. And so I think it's kind of an interesting pick there. I'm with you. I think the value was definitely there. A lot of people had a day round 2 pick grade, whatever, on him, and the Lions get him at the top of the 4th. There were some other wide receiver options that I think people were looking maybe to get a pure speed guy in the slot, but it's clear that's not exactly the direction the Lions wanted to go in. Are you still working over there, Mike?
No, I'm ready.
Okay,
I'm ready.
Let's hear it. Let's start with St. Brown. What are your thoughts on St. Brown?
Well, I was a little slighted by his speed. I think he ran like a 4.5 or something like that, which isn't too bad. He's not as speedy as some of the other receivers I would have liked to have had, like an Amari Rodgers or even a K Johnson or something like that. But he's a guy that could do a lot of things. I mean, if you watch some of his highlights, especially in a game against Washington State where he scored 4 touchdowns, I mean, he can get contested catches. He can run the ball if you need him to run the ball in short yard situations, but he's not going to be a guy that's going to like get away from people. But I have seen some people say, and I don't see this, but I have seen some people say that he's kind of like a slower Golden Tate. Like he can get creative every now and again. He can get away from defenders, but I just temper your expectations on that one, guys. I like the pick. It's just it wasn't the receiver I was hoping for.
All right, let's move to the second pick. Literally right after that, as the Lions trade up to get a linebacker out of Purdue, Derrick Barnes. Almost did it again. So Barnes, like I said before, kind of an interesting guy because first 3 years at Purdue, he plays as an edge defender. Continually gets better as a pass rusher. I think he gets 6.5 sacks his junior year, starting to look like a legitimate pass rushing threat. And then Purdue changes it up completely and makes him an off-ball linebacker instead. And then he becomes a tackling machine. Only plays 6 games because of the shortened schedule due to COVID, but kind of looks the part. And the Lions finally got what they've really been missing, which is a long-term potential solution at linebacker who has speed. He's a speedy guy. He's a guy that can go sideline to sideline. He's a guy that can, if there's an end around or if there's, any sort of misdirection plays to the outside, off tackle, all that sort of stuff. He's got the speed to catch those guys, whereas a guy like, I don't know, let's say Jelani Tavai doesn't.
Yeah, I think that you definitely see a lot more athleticism with this linebacker than you do on anybody that's on the team. I mean, I think what separates him from Jared Davis is at least this guy can make tackles, right? I mean, he's gonna be able to do some of the things that Jared Davis can do, but he can finish, and his speed is he also ran a 4.5, which is coincidental, right. But his speed is certainly going to help. He was one of the higher graded linebackers in Kent's RAS system there. So I think there's a lot to like about the guy. I think he's somebody that will probably start immediately.
What do you think, John?
I don't necessarily know about immediately, but he's a guy who I think can contribute quite a bit. At the very least, for linebackers, usually they're essentially floor for the rookie season as special teams.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing the Lions have valued in recent years. New coaching staff might change a little bit, but that's one of the few positives they had last year until their coach decided to go rogue. That aside, the other thing to consider is, as you mentioned, it's really a change of philosophy. This is a team that is going away from big linebackers, moving away from guys who can run very quickly. And you mentioned Jelani Tavai, and he's on the outside looking in. I think it was either last month or a few weeks ago where I think it was Dan Campbell was breaking down the linebackers on the group, talking about some of them, and Tavai was kind of a last second thought. It's like, oh yeah, and Jelani Tavai. I think, didn't he mention like Sean Dion Hamilton first?
He did. He absolutely did.
Who essentially has no experience, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So Tavai's a guy who might end up being cut. And a guy like Barnes, it's interesting that you mentioned he was a pass rusher at Purdue for 2019, I believe it was.
Yeah.
I don't see that as his future role in Detroit. One, I think it'd be pretty it would be redundant to have with Julian Okwara,
right?
Both of whom are kind of jack guys, and more so with his size. He's a little over 6 foot tall, which not ideal, but he makes up for it with this speed. Um, when you mentioned the other guys we have, Jamie Collins, I think is probably going to be the top linebacker for the team for next season. We'll see how long that remains due to his contract. But then Alex Anzalone, he had a decent year. He's always been a guy who's been pretty good on paper, but paper thin has been his problem, where injuries have really plagued him. And if he essentially gets injured, I think Barnes is probably going to slot in right there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't necessarily think he starts right away because I think it's important to remember that the Lions are probably only going to be starting two linebackers most of the time. And yeah, I think Anzalone and Jamie Collins are those two guys. But Derrick Barnes, I mean, again, he's kind of new to the position. We spoke to him today, and he said specifically, like, yeah, I didn't, they didn't ask me to drop back in coverage much. So that's a skill he's going to have to learn, and he's got the athletic traits for it, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be good at it. Jared Davis. So I think it's a bit of a project here, but you're right. I think he contributes immediately on special teams, which that's something. And the Lions don't have a long-term plan at linebacker at all. Like you said, Jamie Collins signed for 2 more years. They restructure it so maybe he sticks around for both those years. But the only other linebacker that has a contract beyond 2021 is Jelani Tavai. And we just got done talking about how he doesn't fit what the Lions want at linebacker, so I don't think he's part of the team's long-term plans anyways. So if Derrick Barnes can kind of, grow and the Lions will hopefully give him time to, then yeah, he could be a long-term starter at the position. But I'd keep expectations down right away because I think he's just too new to the position and too new to some of the things that are going to come along with it. Hamza, you're here, buddy.
Yes, I am. How are we doing?
Good, man. How are you feeling after the first couple picks in this day's draft?
Solid. I was really happy with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I can't be upset about Derrick Barnes objectively, but subjectively, like you guys were just talking about, he has the athletic ability to be a good cover guy, but we don't know anything about that because, like you said, he hasn't. And, that leaves me wanting a little bit more Jabril Cox. And that's
Fair.
No surprise to anyone who's been with us the last couple days. But was it John or was it someone else who tweeted right afterwards, what does he provide you that Jabril Cox doesn't? And
That was me.
I think that was a very good assessment, especially considering Jabril Cox is probably the best coverage linebacker in the draft.
Yeah, Barnes probably gets the nod for run defense and a little bit more as a pass rusher based on a bit of experience. But for me, especially with how quick this defense has become, I always felt that Cox was probably a better fit for the defense. But, I guess the injury concerns are one of the reasons why he slid. And I think, maybe some people just aren't really keen on a guy who's a little bit undersized. He's 6'3", but I think he's more so on the light side. So maybe teams not as confident in his ability against the run, but definitely not a Matt Patricia pick either way.
Yeah. I'm trying to look at Jabril Cox and yeah, I mean, it's interesting and we'll maybe we'll figure out why he dropped as far as he did. But most people had a day, round 2, round 3 is great for him. So if the Lions would have grabbed him there, I think a lot of people would be singing their praises about him. But I don't know. I mean, you always kind of have to wait for these to play out. But, Cox was also a captain, played 4 years as a starter at, and we're talking LSU level of competition, much higher. So.
Well, he didn't play 4 years at LSU. He played 1 year at LSU.
That's right. You're right. That's right. North Dakota State. So, but I mean, you come into LSU and you immediately be team captain like that. That says something.
Right.
I will say one thing that I want to add about this day 3 so far is it has reassured me of some of my concerns from day 2, where the Lions obviously they drafted 2 defensive tackles. I was pretty happy with their corner pick of Fatu Melifonwu.
Yep.
I think. Okay. I was happy with that pick, but for me, taking 2 defensive tackles kind of came off as a little bit of a luxury move, even though long term, nothing in this roster is set in stone. But my concerns at the time were I didn't think they might be able to get a good starting caliber wide receiver. I didn't think they would get a linebacker who is good with speed and can maybe even slot in pretty quickly. And I think the Lions ended up getting two of those guys. He might not start from the offset, but I think there's a good bit of potential going forward.
Quick shout out to a couple of our supporters out there. Line Rumble 81 with the $4.99 super chat says, "Roaring in Vegas, 313 state of mind. The city is buzzing." Appreciate that. And then we also had Big Ick Nick with the 3-month subscription. Appreciate that. And we had a whole bunch of follows today before we even went on stream. Appreciate all that support. I know Donnie Kong Jr., I don't know if we gave you a shout out yesterday. He had a 13-month subscription to sleep. We don't need to stinking sleep. May have to disagree with you with you on that by the end of the day. I'm working on about 4 hours ish. Went to bed about 3, woke up at about 7. Yeah. Got some coffee, so I'm feeling good about it. All right. So let's talk about kind of just I guess the overall scope of the draft, because the Lions started by going 3 linemen, I should say, working in those trenches, and now kind of working their way out, getting a linebacker, getting a corner, finally getting a wide receiver. Now that you kind of see the overall scope of this plan, I guess, do you see a cohesive plan here? Do you see, maybe something that, after day 1 or day 2, you're just like, I don't know what's going on here, but now everything's come into clear? Or do you see just like, I don't know, what are your overall thoughts with the strategy here? Was it sound? Was it maybe sound in strategy, but they got the wrong guys? Just kind of curious as to what you're thinking. I'll start with you, Hamza.
Yeah, I think it's a good strategy. They're getting faster. That's always a good thing. That's probably the number one concern, because in today's NFL, you can be fast and not good, but you can't be not fast and good. That's just a reality. As a team, as a player, yeah, sure, but as a team, that doesn't work. And I think that's a good place to start. And I think knowing what Aaron Glenn did in New Orleans and what the Rams do up front on their defense, I'm really encouraged by what the defense has to offer. I am glad that a lot of the picks have been defensive players, because I think that's what they should start by building. Because so long as you have Jared Goff at the helm, that ship is sinking. So I don't know. I appreciate them taking this approach rather than maybe loading up on offensive weapons and still keeping Jared Goff at the helm. I'm sure we'll see the draft picks skew towards offense next year. But I really like what they've done. The defense is, it's far from fixed. But I think given where we started, they've taken some significant strides forward where it can be a middle of the pack defense very reasonably this year if things go right.
Yeah, the one thing that's kind of interesting about the defense is, at this point in the year, we're always kind of looking at depth charts at, the highest potential. We look at them and be like, well, this could be good. And you look at the defensive line and it's like, it could be good. Like, I know, I feel like we've said this in a couple straight off seasons. We're just like, that defensive line could be good. And obviously if you're relying on a couple rookies, you probably aren't going to get the kind of performance that you'll eventually get out of those players. But you look, they've got new edge guys. They've got old edge guys that were good. They've got a couple new interior defenders that fill needs that they've had in terms of pass rush. It could be okay there. Like, and I say good in that, like, they still don't necessarily have that elite player that teams have to really game plan around. But Romeo Okwara and Trey Flowers are 2 above average players to borderline great. Not elite though. And then you got some depth guys that could in Julian Okwara, in Austin Bryant that could could. We're going to use could a lot because everything at this point is on paper. And then you add in those interior defenders with Michael Brockers, and something like, if they stay healthy, like that's an above average unit. Am I wrong?
Right. And to your point though, we do look at everything as best case scenario at this time of the off season, especially we're all drinking the Kool-Aid the last few days. But you also have to consider worst case scenario, like let's say one of the four defensive players that the Lions drafted comes in and starts from day one. I don't see them being significantly worse than they were last year.
Right.
Just from strictly a schematic standpoint, they're so much better off now to handle a modern offense where you can pick up street guys like Alex Anzalone. Maybe that's an exaggeration, not a street guy, but like someone who is available this time of the offseason and put together a ragtag defense like that, and you'll perform as well as the Lions defense did last year. So it really can't get much worse. So I think this offseason of all, it's not the worst thing to look at optimistic because there really is nowhere to go but up.
Right. Mike, let's start to you in terms of your just kind of what do you kind of view as the Lions' overall philosophy in this draft, and do you agree with it?
No, I think that the whole story here is going to be building this team, and it's going to take some time. And I have mentioned it a bunch of times. This is why everybody's signed to such long contracts. This is going to be a process. I still think that, I know I'm not, this statement's not going to be the most favorite statement for the other two gentlemen that are with us here, John and Hamza, but I still think that they fully believe in Jared Goff, and that's why they're building a team around him. I think that they know he's their guy, and that's why they want to protect him, and that's why they're, getting some guys that can also facilitate the run game with Penei Sewell, and you get yourself a new receiver with Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's a lot of things there that sort of point to the idea of just building a team slowly, not getting into a rush, getting value, making sure that 2-3 years from now you have a team that's, if you need to move on from Goff, you can install a new quarterback into a team that's ready to go. And I think the Lions are doing that just expertly at the moment.
Yeah, and the one thing I'm curious about, and hello. Okay, there we go. Sorry.
Okay.
The one thing I'm curious about, and if I get an opportunity to ask Brad Holmes this tonight, I'm going to. This whole, not anchoring yourself to needs and just getting the best player available and things like that, just getting players that they like. I'm curious if that's just a strategy now, or if that's a long-term strategy. If it's just a strategy now because, the roster, they're starting from scratch in terms of building a roster in their vision, it would make sense. Yeah, grab just your guy off the top because you need your guys. You don't have your guys on the roster. Go get your guys and kind of worry about the positions later. Or is it is that just his draft philosophy? Is just like, hey, you get need in free agency, you get need in trades. You build talent through the roster or through the draft. I'm curious if his draft strategy essentially changes depending on how far along they are in the rebuilding process. And obviously, I don't know what kind of answer I'd get from that because he's said publicly he doesn't view it as a rebuild, it's a retool. So maybe he would say we're already close enough. This is just how I draft. But I'm curious to see if he thinks his draft strategy will change depending on where he views the roster is currently at.
I got an answer for that. I think you have to look at it like the cupboard is bare, right? Mm-hmm. He came in, they've shedded Matthew Stafford, Kenny Golladay, some of your more premier players, and I don't think that they're done shedding either. I mean, we've talked about Tavai on here already. I think that dude's gone training camp. They might even trade him today. Who knows? For another pick. You never know. So I think you have to look at it as the cupboard's bare and you have $20 and you need the bare essentials. You need bread, you need milk, whatever else the bare essentials are. And that's why you go out and you get yourself some defensive help that, defensive tackles, the offensive linemen that, these are your bread. These are your milk. These are the things that are going to help you sustain for a little while. And then when you come up and you go out and you get your luxury items like your filet mignon wide receiver or your, what I'm saying? Your whatever else people consider luxury items.
But the reason I want to ask Brad Holmes that is because that would be an admission of no, we're actually in a rebuild, right? If he were to say we're not
he's never going to say that.
Yeah, I'm curious how he'll respond though. So hopefully I'll get an opportunity to ask him tonight. But I'll throw it to you, John, in terms of just kind of the overall scope of the draft so far and how you're feeling about this Brad Holmes rebuild.
So I think this draft has really indirectly said the Lions are going rebuild, because if the Lions were looking to compete in 2021, I don't think he would have waited till the fourth round to draft a receiver. I don't think he would have waited until maybe not even taking a safety. Uh, Taking two defensive tackles with your first and second pick on day two comes off as we're taking our time here.
Right.
And I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think I was a person who was long expecting this rebuild to be a long and arduous process. Uh, but I think in a vacuum, I liked a lot of the Lions picks so far this draft. I'm just not super in love with some of the context of which it happened. I mean, for Sewell, obviously, if you needed offensive linemen, he's the best on the board, unless you're the Raiders, who for some reason think Alex Leatherwood is the best. Um, I really like the value of Justin Fields for me, but they didn't view him either as highly or they viewed Goff higher. Either way, moving on to day two, I like both the picks of the defensive tackles individually. The problem is I don't necessarily like the picks together.
Right.
For me, I think you can still agree that defensive tackle was a position of weakness. A while back, I covered in a question of the day about which positions the Lions
I remember that.
could double down on.
Yep.
And I mentioned wide receiver being the first one because I don't think anyone could disagree. They probably would have been fully justified to do that. But then defensive tackle was the other one I mentioned. I just didn't expect it to come that early.
Yeah.
Now, the one benefit, though, is that both of these defensive tackles are very different from each other.
Right.
Levi
Onwuzurike.
Yeah, that's gonna take a while. Onwuzurike is more of a Deshaun Hand kind of guy, where he's like a hybrid defensive and defensive tackle. And then you have Alim McNeil, who is more of a nose tackle. But both of those guys bring a lot of pass rushing presence, which is good to have. I think kind of what I mentioned earlier is that I wasn't super keen on the picks because I was afraid of passing on some of the really good linebacker prospects, safety prospects, wide receiver prospects. Amon-Ra St. Brown wasn't one of my preferred options. Like, I wouldn't have really wanted him on day two, but getting him at the start of day three is good value in my books. Barnes, as I mentioned, I would have preferred Cox, but it's still nice to have a speedy linebacker. So that kind of helps ease some of my worries a little bit. We'll see how it plays out, but for me, this is definitely going to be a slower process than I think some people anticipated. I think 2022, maybe 2023 is probably going to be the years when we kind of start competing. I think right now we're just putting pieces in place.
All right, so looking forward beyond the draft, because next becomes rookie minicamp. There's obviously some free agency that the Lions are probably going to fill out, and obviously undrafted free agents. We don't need to get into that right away, but looking at the roster right now, what do you guys think is the team's biggest needs going forward for this year? Because I'm looking at this roster and they need some bodies at some positions, like not even talking about potential starters, like they just need bodies there. But I'm curious, maybe one position a piece. What points to you as one of the team's biggest weaknesses? Let's go back to Hamza.
I think it's got to be safety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, even at wide receiver, you have bodies, but you don't have bodies at safety. They need bodies.
Yeah, no question about that. I mean, they might be barreling down towards starting Will Harris at this point.
Right. Which tells you all you
know. Right. What about you, Mike? What's one of the bigger needs for you?
I think it's still receiver. I mean, we've talked about the cupboards being bare. Well, they're pretty bare. I mean, right now it's Brashad Perryman, Tyrell Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Quintez Cephas. Right. I think Geronimo Allison's still around here somewhere. It's a really interesting group. It's one of those groups that you hope that maybe one of these guys like suddenly like it just snaps and they're good, like Perryman, like all of a sudden he just lives up to that first round draft pick that he was. But going forward, they got to get somebody else in there. I don't know if you sign a veteran in right before camp or something, but you got to get somebody else in there.
Yeah, it does seem like. I mean, I guess they could start. The issue is that like everything has to go perfectly for Tyrell Williams and Brashad Perriman to be your 1 and 2. I think both of them have very high ceilings, but they need luck on their side, whether it's injury luck or just being put in the right positions or getting good quarterback play, which is something that he may or may not get in Jared Goff. But yeah, I think there needs to be a backup plan, because one of those guys goes down, suddenly you're starting God knows who at outside receiver. Anything else that we're missing here, John, in terms of needs still for this roster? I'm sure there's plenty.
Yeah, safety, wide receiver, definitely 1-2 in terms of positions that need assets. I don't think they're going to really add much in the draft or even in free agency. I think it's probably going to be for future years to work on. For the 2021 season, honestly, I still think the Lions could stand to upgrade at kicker. I'm not really sold on Randy Bullock. Matthew Wright really doesn't have a lot of experience. I think it's like 4 field goals in his career. So, if the Lions spend that 7th round pick on a kicker, I wouldn't hate it. I mean, essentially, a late pick like that is just it's an early pass for UDFA. I also think, the Lions, the kind of released Hunter Bryant. They might be looking for a 3rd tight end. We'll see what they think of Elise Mack. Aside from that, I think the roster is looking decent. I don't think they're going to be competitors, but I think there aren't too many pressing needs outside of that. I think the defensive line is actually looking pretty good.
I want to get to Hamza in a second really quick about special teams, because he's our special teams correspondent. But Hunter Bryant, I'm trying to get dig deep on the rule book and all that, but I believe since he was placed on the NFI reserve, so he reverted back to the roster after getting waived injured with a non-football injury.
So Hunter Bryant is on the Lions right now.
He is on the Lions, but he's on NFI reserve. And normally when you go on the non-football injury list this early in the game, you go on the NFI active, which means you can be, brought up from the NFI anytime you want. But once you go on the NFI reserve, I do believe that means you miss the first 6 games of the season. And if they're already putting him on the NFI reserve, that means he suffered some sort of obviously serious injury. And I'm not 100% sure on that, so you'll have to, hold off until I get more clarification from looking in the rule book. But I would say I would not expect Hunter Bryant to contribute much this year, if at all.
Yeah, that's disappointing too, because coming out of college, he was it was like 1st or 2nd team all conference or something. It might have even been national ranking. And he was a really talented tight end who, if he stayed healthy, would have been a 1st round choice. But he can't stay healthy. And I guess that just isn't changing, which is disappointing, because that's a guy who has a lot of raw talent. Even this is going to sound silly, but when I play with him in Madden, he's as good as TJ Hawkinson. They know he's good, but he can't stay healthy.
Yeah. But all of that explains, it felt like, obviously we're talking about a TE3, so maybe calling it shocking news is a little bit of overstatement, but surprising nonetheless when we saw that he got waived, even with an injury. But it does appear that something serious has happened, and I don't know. That's another question maybe for Brad Holmes down the line. I don't know if anyone really wants to hear about TE3 on draft night, but either way. But I'm curious as to your thoughts on the Lions kicker situation, because I don't know. In my mind, I think Matthew Wright's the dude. Or I'm sorry, I think Randy Bullock is the dude. Just a cheap guy who's somewhat accurate from 40 yards and under. But do you think the Lions should consider, 5th to last pick in the draft, get a kicker here?
Depends what you mean by the dude. If you're talking for this year, anyone can be the dude. I'll step in and be the dude, and I don't even kick. But if we're talking a long-term solution in a season that matters, no, absolutely. Randy Bullock is not.
Yeah.
Matt Wright could be. I don't see him being like a 10 to 15 year guy. I see him being like a 3 to 4 year solution where, I don't know, if 3 to 4 years from now he goes on a stretch of a few games and misses several consecutive kicks, he gets cut, and that's the end of his league tenure. That's the kind of player I could see him being, in best case scenario. Worst case scenario, he's another stopgap kicker who bounces around from team to team. He filled in for the Steelers pretty well. But I think Matt Wright, honestly, I look at the contract for Randy Bullock, and I know that Randy Bullock is going to be the guy this year. I think Matt Wright is better than Randy Bullock, and I would like to see him get the shot because at the very least, he's younger. Even if he's slightly worse, he's younger. He gives you upside. Who knows? He comes in, has some consistency and stays with one team for a year and maybe plays pretty well and earns himself a contract. But I have to imagine because the contract structure is going to be Randy Bullock, I would like for it to be Matt Wright, but long term, either way, you need a better solution. So, but again, with the contract, I don't see them taking a kicker in the draft then, because I'm not remembering what it was. I wrote about it when they first signed Randy Bullock, but what is the guaranteed money on his contract? Let's see.
I want to say it's around 2, but I'm not.
It's a $1.75 million contract with $750,000 guaranteed. That's a lot of dead money to have. I mean, so unless someone else comes in and blows it out of the water, I don't see that happening. I don't necessarily see Matt Wright doing that, and I don't see the Lions committing to either wasting a 7th round pick or wasting $750,000. So that's where we're at.
That's fair. We'll get to a bunch of your questions in a second, chat. The other 2 positions that I want to mention as ones of need, nickel corner, Corn Elder, and end of list. Yeah,
maybe you put Oruwariye there, but
yeah,
I don't think he's played much, if at all, as a Detroit Lion.
Right, and I don't
Isn't he
think
pretty oversized for a nickel corner. He's like 6'2", 205.
Yeah, I don't think they have an answer there right now, and so
Yeah.
Corn Elder can hold it down this year, I guess. But again, you need someone to back him up. I don't know if you have a single person to back him up yet. So that's something that I expect them to either target in the UDFA process or maybe free agency.
I could definitely see that being a high priority going into next year's draft, where they look for someone who could slide in the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson role.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was I want to say 2nd or 3rd round pick last year, and some mocks even had him in the or not last year, was it 2 years ago? I forget. But some mocks had him as early as the late 1st, and I think that could be a target for the Lions, especially if they don't address safety here. It's a little late to address safety, and the options on the market aren't great. I think when you go in next year, you could kind of hit 2 birds with one stone if you find the right prospect to nab in day 1 or day 2 to fill that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson role.
Yep, I agree. And then the other position, funny, you probably won't hear me say this often, but Lions actually need more running backs. They literally only have 3 on the roster, and usually you carry at least 4 on the 53. So, I mean, I guess you consider some of the fullbacks running backs, but literally they only have 3. They don't have anyone else. And so I expect them to add, honestly, at least 2 undrafted rookies this year, because you can find, speedy talent late in the draft or in the UDFA process just to kind of be that depth guy, be that, speed. And we know what they're looking for, right? They're looking for guys who can play all 3 downs. You're looking for guys who can pass block. Deuce Staley said it on here. If you can't pass block for me, you're not for me. And guys that can catch the ball. Now, obviously, you're not going to get a 3 down back right in the UDFA process, but you've got a skill set that you're looking for, and there are going to be guys that can at least do that in a pinch, I think.
So right now the Lions roster is what? DeAndre Swift, Kerryon Johnson, who else?
And Williams.
Jamal Williams.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot they signed him. Okay.
Yeah.
I actually think that looking at how the board is right now, I think we still have a majority of the 6th round to go, but there's some decent pass catching running backs still available. Demrick Felton from UCLA is kind of a wide receiver running back hybrid. Khalil Herbert from Virginia Tech. Kylan Hills, guy I really like from Mississippi State. Puka Williams. It could be a decent haul there. And I think this is something that really makes me wish that the Lions hadn't cut their running back they drafted last year.
Yeah. I'm drawing a blank too. I can picture him, but I don't know what his name is.
Jason Huntley.
Jason Huntley. And I know for certain that not everyone in the building was happy about that cut.
Yeah, I'm really wishing they had kept him, because this would have been a great opportunity for him.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
And the Lions didn't really get anything to show for it. I mean, I can't remember. They kept Ty Johnson for a little bit.
Yep.
but
I mean, either of
did
those
they
guys
keep,
would
like,
be welcome
another-
on the roster right now.
Yeah, but like I'm trying to think when we cut him, was there a particular person that he kept instead? I think Agnew was kind of in the discussion. I'm trying to think of some other guys that were kind of outsiders.
But I mean, just like looking
they
at the
kept,
in the big picture, grand scheme of things, like just look. I mean,
Scarborough.
and obviously, you know, Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn weren't going to do this, but like, if you're building for the long term, how silly was it that the Lions got Adrian Peterson and eventually kept a guy like him over a young potential guy like Ty Johnson or Jason
Adrian
Huntley?
Peterson?
Yeah, it's silly, and you
that really felt like LeGarrette Blount 2.0.
Yeah, and he to be fair, he played pretty well to start the season, and you know there was some value there, but you only make a move like getting Adrian Peterson unless you're one, absolutely desperate, which the Lions weren't. Two, thinking that you need just one little extra piece to compete for a Super Bowl, and I don't think anyone disillusioned themselves that they were going to be a Super Bowl contender last year. So, I mean, sure, it didn't cost the Lions much, but it kind of did in terms of a roster spot. So,
Yep.
Yeah, not a cap space eater, but a what?
Ty Johnson had a 100-yard rushing game with the Jets last year.
It's true.
So, what's the most yards Peterson had?
56 probably.
No, in last season.
He had a 90. I think he had like a 94-yard game early on.
He had 93 in week 1, not too shabby.
On like 28 carries.
Not much after that. Like, he was better than Blunt. Blunt was like historically awful.
Yeah.
But kind of hoping for more.
And C.J. Anderson was even worse. He didn't even make it to the bye week, I don't think.
Oh yeah.
And he was right at Detroit staff.
And we were excited for that, and kind of nothing happened. Well,
Man,
that was 2019, not 2020.
You know, the Lions signed him, and someone linked a clip of him running with the Rams when he was basically unsigned most of the season, had a little extra weight on him. And they signed him, and he said, I'm never going to look like this again. I'm going to be in the best shape in the fall. And then I go to training camp. It's like 85 degrees and sunny. He's wearing a hoodie under his pads.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like he's trying to get into that camp shape, whatever. He quote tweets me and says, "Why is everyone telling me that I'm losing weight? Like, you're a terrible reporter, whatever, this and that." And that was a fun time. Got a lot of attention out of that.
It all happens to us once or twice. A player catches wind of a mildly insulting tweet, and yeah, the best part about that isn't getting slammed by a player, because I mean, who cares? It's one guy. It's the hundreds upon hundreds of Lions fans that then jump on you as either just saying, "Oh, you're a hater," or "Oh, Detroit is trash." And it's just like, y'all, you don't need to carry this player's water. He doesn't care about you. It's okay.
What happened most recently with Alex? Was that Carry On? I can't remember who he butted heads with.
No, that was Agnew.
Jamal Agnew.
That was Agnew, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, I think Alex is kind of true. He didn't really do much on offense. I can't remember the exact tweet. But
he said,
Jacksonville gave
a lot
of money. So.
What is the point of Jamal Agnew?
Yeah, I mean, it was a special teamer. That was kind of the extent of it. We'll see if Jacksonville does. Oh no, the Titans just chose Racey McMath.
What? No!
Oh no!
Cancel the stream. We're done.
No.
Bye, everybody.
Speaking of which, it is my nap time though, so I'm gonna go take a nap.
All right.
Jeremy, I'm gonna tweet out from the Pride of Detroit account.
Go for it.
Dream is dead.
Well, while you guys do that, what about quarterbacks? I mean, should the Lions grab one extra guy?
No.
UDFA.
No.
Nope.
Brady White.
Okay,
Ellinger.
Nope.
I will tell you. Actually, I will concede. A UDFA, if you can get someone like Jamie Newman, I would be on board with that. But anyone else, not really for me. Newman, who's a guy who I think a lot of people kind of viewed as a toolsy guy, and I think had he played this year, I think he probably would have been a bit higher on draft boards. But for me, I think this isn't a team that can really commit to a developmental quarterback. And right now they have what's his name?
Tim Boyle and
He's
David Blau.
He's not that old.
No,
I think
Tim Boyle's like
26
26 or something. Yeah, I mean, young and
Yeah, he's 26.
Packers beat writers love him for some reason, so there might be some
Packers
potential
beat
there.
writers were saying some were saying he's better than Jordan Love.
Well,
so we got the best Packers quarterback.
There was a one Packers beat writer that said he will legitimately contend with Jared Goff for the starting job, and he wasn't being sarcastic.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine if he won the starting quarterback job?
I welcome it.
Like, how insane would that be? Insane.
It'd be a great story. I mean, I would love to see something like that. I think everybody would.
By the way,
Boyle,
Mike,
where did he go to college?
She Smith also just went to what was the Panthers, I think. So sorry.
Kay Johnson is still out there though.
Oh no, Tim Boyle. He went to UConn. Can you think of the last Detroit Lions quarterback from UConn?
He shows up on my TV and my feed quite often.
Oh, that guy.
That guy.
Damn.
We all suddenly hate for some reason. I don't know where that started. But...
Because he went on ESPN and became a hot take artist where he just yells instead of breaks down tape.
Yeah.
Like, that he was so good in that role where he was just like breaking down tape and being energetic. Now he's just like he's tossing allegations out. I don't know, like he in like a matter of a year, he's pissed off an NBA player by calling him lazy. He's thrown out a completely unsubstantiated claim about Justin Fields that went absolutely viral, and now everyone thinks it's true. And I don't know, he's being irresponsible and annoying, and I don't know. It's just something that happens when you become a personality on TV, is that you either think you're either told that you have to be this kind of like embrace debate guy, or it all gets to your head and you're just like, this is how I'm going to get attention. This is how I'm going to get clicks on Twitter and stuff. And it's just, I don't know. It's just annoying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of worked. A lot of people know who he is after being a pretty bum quarterback, most known for his safety. But it's kind of the same thing with like Chris Sims, who's been posting some like ridiculous takes. Like, didn't he have like Kellen Mond or something ranked above Justin Fields or something ridiculous?
He had
like
Justin
that?
Fields falling to 32.
Yeah, which was nuts.
I guess, but I don't know. To me, I think Chris Sims is actually being honest. I think he just has a very different opinion on a lot of things, and to me, that's fine. I feel like we bury Chris Sims a little bit too much because most of his opinions are about like draft stuff, and like, well, yeah, it's okay to have a different opinion on draft stuff. I feel like we succumb to too much groupthink come draft time, so I welcome an opposing opinion. Now, if it turns out he's wrong most of the time, well then you can ignore him. I personally ignore him because I do think he's wrong most of the time, and I don't really. But I don't get like the offense. Like he's just someone who has a differing opinion. I think a lot of hot take artists just like they're first of all they're disrespectful and they're insulting, and two, I think a lot of them are being disingenuous. They're cranking up, maybe an opinion of theirs that they hold and crank it up to 11, to a point where they're being hyperbolic, and I don't like that.
Or in the case of one writer who works for a local Detroit paper, they're doing it completely on purpose because the paper wants them to do that.
I can't say claims to that, but
I'm saying it.
But the one thing I will say is a lot of the stuff coming out of, let's say, that corner of the Detroit market just seems very, very uninformed.
I feel bad for the guy. I do. I know everybody hates him. I feel bad for him because he has no editorial conscience. Like he has no, like I couldn't imagine being that way. It seems like a hard life. I don't know. Anyways, you guys mentioned you wanted a nickel corner, and I was looking over the free agent veterans that are available, and I think I found a good nickel corner.
Okay.
And it's nickel Roby Coleman. He's perfect. He's got the name already. No, but seriously, actually, he wouldn't be a bad signing, I don't think.
Yeah, we've talked about him quite a bit. I mean, it feels like ages ago during free agency. Yeah, I mean, it's possible. There are certainly questions. The Eagles secondary has been so up and down in general. And so he's an option. And I just want to make sure he's not signed, right?
He's older than I expected. I thought he's 29.
He's 29.
I swore he only got drafted like a few years ago. 2013.
Yeah,
He wasn't even drafted.
I think you put him on a 1-year deal or something like that. Just somebody to plug a hole. Basically, I think he would be a decent fit for that.
And he's got overlap with the Rams. So Ray Agnew, who's dealt with the pro personnel side of things, is going to have a pretty good read on him. I mean, and maybe that's why they haven't gone nickel. Maybe they know they kind of have him in the back pocket. Not a stellar player, but a body, and Lions just need bodies.
This is something that I don't think the Lions are gonna do, but in the days leading up to the draft, I can't remember who. I think it was Jeremy who brought it up, but you brought to my attention that Larry Warford played for the Detroit Lions, as we know, and he opted out after the 2020 kind of COVID thing. And he's still actually unsigned, which is surprising because he was a Pro Bowler in 2019, the year before.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Lions go that direction, just because I think they're probably going to put Vaitai in at guard. But just it's kind of a big name that I feel like has really flown under a lot of radars. I think he's a guy who can be a starting guard for almost any team. And I'm surprised he hasn't got any deals. I don't recall if there's any injury concerns, but
no, I think there's a question of whether he wants to return. Honestly, I think I don't have a source, but I think I remember reading at one point there's no guarantee that he comes back. Like he might just be done.
Surprising, he's not that old. I think he's 29 now.
As a technical,
well, if he does, I mean, what a heck of a steal that would be. And obviously, he has connections with Dan Campbell and company. So I mean, it makes sense. Makes too much sense.
Well, except for Vaitai, but I mean, how much does it cost to cut Vaitai? I think if you cut him, you lose money.
Yeah,
correct?
I don't think cutting Vaitai would be a smart move.
Take that hit because that guy was horrible.
Here, let me see.
Sorry, if you're watching Vaitai.
But he was dealing with an injury all of last year. I'm willing to give that guy another shot for a season.
And he's a guard who was playing tackle, and there was a lot there. I get it.
Damn, that says Larry Warford said he wants to start a family. So yeah, I think there's. I don't think he hasn't officially announced a retirement and anything like that, but I think there's a question of whether he wants to return to play.
If the Lions were to release Vaitai tomorrow, they would lose $4.2 million cap space.
Yeah, no thanks.
So, but you could trade him and save $4.8 million. So.
Sure, just trade him to a team that wants to take on a huge right tackle contract.
I mean, for a 7th round pick, would you do that?
No.
No?
No, I don't think so. Not for
I
that
think if
contract.
you're a team with enough cap space, like Jacksonville or something, I think it'd be a decent gamble.
I mean, I don't know. I don't hate on the guy as much as some other people seem to, but
no, I think
where are we at here?
really he was never really in a position to succeed. One, he got hurt pretty early. I think he was hurt in training camp, was it correct? Or was it early in the season?
No, I believe in training camp he was dealing with was it a hammy? Something lower body, I believe. Like, and then he got a concussion. Am I thinking the right person? No, I think I'm thinking someone else. I don't remember.
I think
he did get a concussion. That's him.
Was it? Yeah, a lot of stuff then.
Yeah, he was going through it.
If he was like, I thought he had like a foot injury.
Foot, anyway. That's right. It was a foot injury.
Yeah, he never had really a clean slate.
Yeah.
I still think he probably would have been better served as a tackle long term, but now that you have Sewell and Ragnow outside of him, it's not bad. I think for me the most disappointing thing though is just Logan Stenberg, and I think he was a guy we all knew wasn't really going to play in his first year. He's more of a developmental guy, and it's just disappointing that essentially right now he's, I'd say, on the roster bubble. I mean, he's the backup guard, I suppose. I really had higher expectations, so I mean maybe there's the rare chance that he plays well and actually takes the right guard spot from Vaitai, but. Other than that, it's poor returns, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't know. I kind of view him maybe as like, maybe this is being overly optimistic, or maybe this is what the Lions are thinking too. I think maybe the ceiling is a guy like Joe Dahl, where he's just like, he's a guy that'll eventually be able to back up any position on the interior, but it'll take some time. It'll take 2 years, and there's nothing wrong with having a guy like that on your roster. You prefer maybe veterans that can step in a pinch, but again, beggars can't be choosers here when you're building this Detroit Lions roster. Having a guy like him develop behind the scenes is okay with me. You want starters in the 4th round, I get that, but nothing wrong with getting a little depth.
I mean, can we talk about that draft last year? That was yikes. Like they ended up
Oh man.
Like they drafted Stenberg in the 4th, basically did nothing. They drafted Huntley in the 5th, gone. Pennicini, I guess he did decently, but who's to say he even makes the roster now?
Right.
Cornell, IR, basically right off the bat. Jonah Jackson, decent. We'll see if he can take the next step as well next season. Aquara basically hurt the entire time. Okuda hurt / struggles. And really, Swift was the only guy who really stood out. Even then, he had to split carries with Peterson.
Yeah, and you're not allowed to brag about taking a 2nd round running back anyway. So
yeah, I don't think they traded up for him. Correct?
I don't know. I don't think so.
There's that.
They did that for.
I think it was the natural pick.
Yeah. All right. I think before we close out, I'm willing to answer some fan questions. So if you guys got any questions on YouTube or Twitch, feel free to throw them in. I know there was one earlier that was asking if we're going to do a UDFA tracker for when the draft is over, just tracking all the signings they do through undrafted free agent process. The answer is yes. That happens to be one of the most popular articles we do every single year for some reason. And I'm not exaggerating there. Literally the most popular article we do every year is either that or sometimes like our cuts tracker. So yes, 100% we're going to do it, which means I'm going to be glued to Twitter right after the draft to see all those signings come in. How much to keep the stash? If we can just break Twitch's record for subscriptions in the next, 10 seconds, I'll keep it.
But
Looks like the Lions are 50 picks away, so it's still going to be a while.
Yeah, I don't want to stick around too long because I do have to prepare a little bit for the end of the draft. We have posts that go out immediately, so probably about 15 minutes maybe at the most. If you guys need to bounce out,
I know that's the unfortunate thing about having such a late 7th round pick is that it kind of puts the kibosh on the UDFA stuff.
Yep.
I was thinking, like when the Lions traded up for Barnes, like, ooh, that's some frantic work. All of a sudden, you have back-to-back picks, and you got to put out a lot of different articles at the same time.
Back to the running backs. How do you guys see the usage for Johnson, Swift, Williams? I think Swift is your starter that probably gets at least 20 touches a game. Williams is the guy who comes in, maybe gets 5 to 10, and then you're talking about Carry-On being just that kind of primary 3rd down back who will come in on your 3rd and longs and provide some protections and things like that. Does that seem fair?
I mean, honestly, I think it's going to be probably the same as last year, except just put Williams for Peterson in slot.
Yeah, and probably heavier usage for Swift than at least at the beginning of last year.
Yep. I think we might see a few more like screenplays and dump offs and whatnot, just due to Jared Goff's strengths. How about that? We'll try to be positive here.
Any word on player numbers? No, nothing yet.
Okay, so how many have they drafted so far?
5. Someone says I think Sewell will be 58. That was what he was at Oregon, right?
Oh, player numbers. I think you're talking about how many players we had on the
jersey
roster.
Jersey numbers.
Oh, okay.
Jeremy, can you turn your stash into an NFT and sell it? I mean, given how profitable it was on our Twitch channel, probably. I don't really know how I do that though. How do I make my mustache an NFT?
You put tape on it, and then you shave it off, and then you put it in like acrylic or something.
Bronze it.
If Decker gets hurt, do you think Sewell will slide over or will Crosby play left tackle? That's a good question from Brennan. What do you guys think?
I think you slide Sewell over. You put Crosby at right tackle. And Crosby's got history at right tackle already, so I think that's a pretty easy switch that you can make.
I think it depends on what week this is. I think if it's like week 2 or something and Decker gets hurt, I think you put Sewell at left tackle. I think if it's like week 15 or something and Sewell's been playing on the right side for most of the season, I think you swing Crosby over.
just because he's comfortable at that position now and you don't want to mess that up.
Yeah, and then I think because if it happens like early on, I think Sewell still hasn't had that much experience on the right side. I think moving him back to his natural left side is going to be a pretty easy transition. I think if he's on the right side for more than half the season, just intricacies of the position gets a bit harder to switch over.
I wonder. This seems like it would overcomplicate things, but I wonder if they would consider sliding Sewell over to left tackle and then putting Vaitai at right tackle. I don't know who you put at right guard at that point. I mean, maybe Stenberg.
The other thing to consider is that Decker could be at right tackle right off the bat.
I don't think that's going to happen. And Brad Holmes said specifically after day one that he views Sewell as competition at right tackle, but things can always change. Dan Pass asked about Hunter Bryan. I talked about it a little bit before. They sort of picked him back up. He's on the NFI reserve list, which I believe, I'm still trying to get clarification, but I believe that means he will miss at least the first 6 games of the 2021 season because he suffered some sort of obviously serious non-football injury. We don't have any sort of details on what that is yet. Rock Snubs.
Is there a new?
Go ahead.
Is there a new rule regarding UDFAs? Because Beast on Twitter said the new rule that teams can only take 6 UDFAs for the camp are going to hurt UDFA peeps.
I don't know. I'd have to jump. I don't know.
I don't know what the context of that is. Is that trying to say like you're limited to 6 UDFA signings? That seems weird.
That doesn't seem right, but we have to double check.
I'm not sure. I can't recall anything about that. If anyone in chat happens to know, I'd be interested.
Rocksnub Slal subscribed 4 minutes ago. I missed it, so thanks for the reminder. Just says, I just subscribed because of your draft shows. Thanks, Pride Detroit, for the awesome streams. They make my weekend. Appreciate it. Stick around. We do weekly podcasts here usually on Monday nights. It'll be on Sunday nights so that we can get it up on the podcast feed for Monday morning. We do interview shows usually once a week with either an analyst or sometimes a player. We do Madden Sims in the off season, and if we get partnered here on Twitch, we'll probably do some gaming streams where we get to play games with some of you guys. If we do things like that.
So if I counted correctly, the Lions currently have 64 players on their roster. So add in the 6 players they've drafted so far. That puts us at 70.
There's a lot of work to do.
We could see quite a few UDFAs.
I think we're going to see well over 10. And I think in a normal season is probably somewhere between 7 and 11-ish. I think we're going to see more than that this year.
Did any UDFAs make the team last year? I can't remember.
Hunter
Bryant.
Yeah, Hunter
Kind
Bryant.
of.
He was on the 53.
Bobby Price did.
Oh, yeah, Bobby Price too, yeah.
I don't know if that was the initial one, but...
Hi, Alex Reno. I know you. You want to join us, buddy? We're just hanging. Although we're probably not a good idea. We're probably about to jump off here so we can prep for the end of the draft here. As we're getting close, I think, to the end of the 6th round. Let me see where we're at here. We're at 211, so we still got about 17 picks before the end of the 6th round, since we've got 12 compensatory picks at the end. Assuming Levi Onwuzurike is the 3 tech and Alim is the 1 tech nose tackle, I should say, where does that leave Penasini in hand? Rotational players or in jeopardy of losing their spot on the roster? I would say they're still probably on the roster, simply because I don't think the Lions have much to gain by dropping those guys. But I think it could potentially move both those guys down on the depth chart. I mean, I know you specifically wrote about both those guys and what it means for the depth chart there, John. So I'm curious as to what you think.
Yeah. So Hand, I think, is really on the roster bubble now because he had a really good rookie season, but the coaching staff is completely new. I don't think there's any commitment to him. And last year he was mainly in a backup role, and even then he still got hurt, right? As for the nose tackle position, I think Penasini's probably a candidate for the practice squad. I just don't really see the value in keeping 2 nose tackles on the team. Especially, I think Michael Brockers has a little bit of nose tackle experience. Let me double check that.
Yeah.
I think having... Oh, great. PFF is down. Beautiful.
I think he does, at least a little bit, but I mean, he's mostly going to play More of a 3.
Like in a pinch, I think
Yeah.
you can make 2.
Right. Some good friends in the chat. Bearded Blevins is here. Appreciate you dropping by, buddy. I'm sorry I didn't let you take over the stream last night. Hannah's in here saying, I came for the last viewing of the stash. Yeah, this is it. We're getting towards the last, 5-10 minutes of the mustache ever being on the stream again, because it's going at the end of the night.
Hello, Smithsonian. Yes, I've got something that you need to add.
Alex,
We're gonna
I know
bronze
is
that
happy.
thing.
Yeah, I don't know what I'll do with the shaving. Should I do anything with it, or is that creepy? That's creepy, right? I should just throw them away.
Kind of weird.
All right, that's weird. All right, never mind.
A little weird.
Didn't say it.
Should make a doll out of it or something creepy
We
like
can
that.
sell it.
Kyle Sleeps threw in a bunch of information about the NFI reserve list. I've looked that over. The only reason I'm not entirely sure about it is because you normally don't see players get put on the non-football injury list until right before training camp, and so the timing of it might mean that there's different rules for it. But I'm just not entirely sure. Don't save it. Bronze it.
Because what happened to Bryant at the end of the season? He got injured of some kind, but I don't remember hearing about surgery. Do you?
No, and this would be different too because it's a non-football injury.
Yeah, true. But here, it looks like he had a concussion or mid last year, and he had a hamstring that started it off.
What do I think of Josh's suggestions? What suggestion? Did I miss it?
Let's see.
Oh, if we reach 1,000 subs, you have to regrow the stash after you shave. What do you say? I mean, we're at 936, and I see, and I'm sure if I agree to this, you guys could do it in a second. Here's what I'm going to say about the mustache. I will promise to grow it for Movember. And potentially every year for Movember, and keep it for a couple months because you guys love it, and I don't want to rob you of that. And it's fun for Movember because we can also raise money for a good cause. I'm not going to commit to regrowing it before then. I think I'm ready to reunite myself with my upper lip again. I think I'm ready to drink a milkshake without it sitting in my upper lip for 3 hours afterwards.
Are you drinking milkshakes without straws?
Well,
Who does that? That's kind of weird, man.
no, like a smoothie. You can drink a smoothie without a straw.
Well, that's a smoothie. A milkshake
I meant a smoothie.
is a whole different.
I make smoothies all the time.
Okay.
I mean, from a consistency perspective, they're very similar. So,
It's true.
what is it about a smoothie that makes it okay to drink without a straw, but a milkshake has to have a straw? And now we get where you fill us up.
These are the
Well,
important questions in life.
with the smoothie, it's a little bit more fruit juice, so it's a little bit thinner, I think. With the shake, it's very thick. It's.
Mm-hmm.
I think you got to straw that or spoon. I will accept a spoon with a shake. That seems like something you could do too.
Spoon.
Mail it to Stafford. Okay, that is full on creepy. I think people think I'm a little obsessed with Matthew Stafford already. I think sending him blue mustache shavings might get me arrested.
I miss you.
Yeah, just anthrax or something.
I literally spell out "I miss you," tape my mustache to a paper that's spelling out "I miss you" and send it to him.
Oh, no. I think he would probably take it to the police. They'll do DNA testing on it, and then they'll get a restraining order.
Nah, I don't think my DNA's on file. I'll be fine.
I think we'll have a new editor by Tuesday.
You
That's
need
the
a
real reason we
girthy
brought in
straw.
Eric.
Don't call it I do not like the word girthy. That is not a great word. Bryant was hurt playing in a beach volleyball tournament with Joseph Fourier.
Oh no. Or was it his dog? How did Sam Martin hurt? Did he step on a shell or something?
Yeah, he stepped on a conch shell or something in the ocean on vacation. Lion's luck. You get injured tripping on your dog, stepping on a conch shell, or driving pizza home.
Or getting
don't forget about the Chilean. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
That one was stupid. That one was totally made
we
up.
say it with quotation marks. Or some other wacky. I swear we've had a few other wacky injuries.
Editor and Clink.
Well, we had Nate Burleson who broke his arm stopping pizza.
Oh yeah. I said that.
Tully who tore his
Zumaya playing
ACL.
Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's a good one.
We had Tully who tore his ACL celebrating a sack.
True.
Oh, that one was embarrassing.
That one's sad.
Mm-hmm.
Any chance? Yeah, I saw a couple of people ask about Obi Melifonwu because he just recently got waived from, I want to say
San Francisco.
San Francisco. I mean, it would be a cool story, but the dude has played 7 games in 4 years since being drafted in the second round. So, I mean, it's a position of need. It's a cool story, and maybe reuniting the brothers ignites some sort of flame in them. But I think if you're expecting like suddenly he's going to be an NFL starter and reach all of his potential with, the Lions coaching staff. Well, I mean, they had a pretty good coaching staff defensively in San Francisco there, and they couldn't get anything out of him. So I wouldn't expect him to be a starter, but it'd be a fun story.
Yeah, I'd be down to sign him because the depth you can't go wrong with. I mean, I was a fan of him as a prospect coming out as a safety. It'd be nice to have another kind of brother story for the Detroit Lions. That'd be kind of fun. But I think it'd be a pretty low risk move to bring him in. He's still pretty young, I think, too. Yeah, he's 27.
Damn.
And he can play safety.
And he can play safety. Well, he can stand at the safety position. I don't know if he can actually play it.
And he would be another Nigerian, obviously, to add to the defense.
True.
I feel like we need to come up with some sort of nickname that's related to that.
The Nigerian Nightmare. There it is. I did it.
Well, I don't know if this is insensitive, but I was thinking you could call them the Princes because they're going to be stealing from quarterbacks, hopefully. Stealing some quarters, I guess.
I'll allow it. Nick Coscarelli says San Francisco has had bad defensive coaches. I never wanted them to come to Detroit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I can't believe the Jets signed an offensive-minded head coach.
All right, guys. I think that is probably going to wrap up our coverage of the 2021 NFL Draft here on Twitch. There's obviously plenty more to come on prideofdetroit.com. We're going to have written stuff. We're going to have highlights. We're going to talk to some people who covered these college players. I know Mike is specifically going to cover that to talk some college beat writers, bloggers.
And 4 of them today.
Oh, nice. Boom. All that's going to start coming in either Sunday or Monday. We still got a Brad Holmes press conference to cover. We still have UDFA to cover. All sorts of fun stuff still coming there this way. And then schedule release in a couple weeks and rookie mini camp, if it goes on, will happen soon. So we are not at all done with coverage with this NFL draft. But in terms of our video coverage, we're done for now. We'll actually be back here tomorrow. I don't even know what I'm saying for our big POD cast with Chris and Ryan talking about our overall thoughts on the process. But we need a little bit of sleep. We need a little bit of rest. We need to recap this day over on prideofdetroit.com. So make sure you go over there. Our Twitch audience, my stupid raid button is still not working. So let's find someone to raid really quick before we go. Send all 200-ish of you somewhere where we like. We could go right back to pop. Let's go Baltimore beatdown. If you want more draft coverage, why not talk about what Baltimore's doing over there? Kind of get a varied perspective over there. They just got Ben Mason, right? So all you Michigan fans, if you want to talk about Ben Mason and fullback play, go over there and hang out. They're a fun crew over there. We like them a lot. They're our SB Nation brethren as well. So go hang out over there. Oh, did I mess it? Oh, I said Baltimore beatdown. Baltimore beat down. But yeah, we will see you guys Sunday night. We don't have a time yet, but it'll probably be around our normal time, so somewhere between 6 and 8 p.m. to discuss the entirety of the NFL draft and more importantly, whoever this big 7th round pick is, because I know we're all waiting on bated breath who that person may be. But until then, appreciate you all joining us. We will see you again soon. Go Lions. Go. I don't know how to end these things, guys. Just go say hi to Baltimore beatdown. Oh, you got something?
We'll see you broadside.
Hey, all right.
That doesn't even make sense.
Nope.